This is a Purple Line Express.
Create a culture where we can treat our employees a lot better. And
I mean, a lot of what we do in selling an idea is showmanship. You can't drive as fast as some of those running backs.
This is Merchandise Mart.
Welcome to the Wyzendale Weekly Wrap-Up, where we talk about architecture, design, everything in between. This week I have a very special guest. Glad you can introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Roe.
Yes. And Chris, we met through a caterpillar of connections that I stumbled upon when talking to people about advertising. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I've never heard caterpillar of connections, so bravo. Yeah. That's nice. About myself, I am a creative director working in the advertising marketing industry. I'm on the art direction side. Got my start here in Chicago many moons ago. My father and uncle had a print production studio not too far from here. So I got to spend a few years working with them. This was before the Mac came in and changed desktop publishing and the world as we know it.
Yeah.
They closed shop, and I had to figure out a career. So I went to an advertising school, two portfolio schools down in Atlanta, Georgia. One started off at the Portfolio Center, and then I moved on to the Creative Circus, which was an interesting name for a school to have to tell your parents you've shifted over to, the Creative Circus.
Is this still around?
It recently was just sold to, their schools were sold to the Miami Ad School, which started roughly the same time.
Okay.
But yeah, I just found out with a bit of sadness in my heart that they kind of folded. But
we have this in common. Sorry, not to cut you off. I went to Harrington College of Design, which is school for interiors. They did have some graphics program, but they are no longer. This happened years ago. But yeah, it's odd when you tell people that your college no longer exists.
Yeah,
you're just like, what?
How does a school fold? Well,
yeah,
it just does. Yeah.
So you went to the Creative Circus and in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was 2 years of my early life, and then from there just started working. I bounced back to Chicago, then up to Minneapolis, and up to Denver, over to Denver, I guess, and then back to Chicago for my longest full-time stint, and then out to San Francisco for a hot second, and back to Chicago, and a few full-time jobs up until about 2015, I believe, when I went freelance, and I've been freelance ever since then.
Nice, man. There's a whole lot to unpack on that, but obviously the reason I invited you on, and obviously the timing, right? I wanted to get your take, and first of all, I love your whole brand and kind of concept behind the Roe Show, and I guess how long have you been working with that?
Probably since the last time I started to go freelance. I kind of took it a little more seriously because I decided that I was probably going to not look for another full-time job again intentionally, and I wanted to see how long I could stay happy doing freelance. So far, so good. And so I think it kind of started there. So the Chris Roe Show just kind of came out by accident. It was just had a ring to it, and I was just like, well, that's just kind of how I'm going to pitch myself from now on. And I kind of branded my website around that, and LinkedIn is that, and Instagram is that, and you won't find any television programming on there, but you will find all of there is to know about me.
Fantastic. I love it. Again, like, do you think, and this is probably a loaded question, but do you think you will ever try to search for another job after tasting freelance? Because I know for me personally, like this hustle that we're currently on, I've never, and I apologize to my previous employers, but I've never given this much effort to something, right? And I've never loved it as much.
That's great.
as what I'm doing now. But do you feel that sort of way when you're doing it on your own and you're picking the projects you want, et cetera, et cetera?
So, great question. Freelance is it's been great. I told myself I wouldn't go back to full time unless it met the criteria of two prior full-time jobs that I had held in my career. One was at an agency in San Francisco, Goodby Silverstein, and the other was here in Chicago at the online satirical publication, The Onion. Those two were just amazing learning lessons and creative outlets in my career, and I swore to myself I just would not take another full-time job unless it felt like it was going to meet that criteria again. And freelance has been really great in terms of having some freedom to choose, when you work and when you don't. You don't want to turn down too much work very often, but you do get to, when there's downtime, you get to do what you want, whatever that may be, whatever floats your boat. So, going back to full-time would have to be a very special opportunity, I think, for me. To do that and to sort of give up the freedoms and things that
you've become accustomed to, for sure.
Yeah.
And so when you see, like, I would think there are large teams that put on the productions. It's like yesterday, the Super Bowl. So with it, we're talking about Super Bowl 57, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, large teams, obviously you have people coming in and out, and, for our millions of fans, we're more in the architecture and design industry. And I guess, how does it work as the freelance industry in advertising is a lot different? I would assume you would have a lot of people coming in and out of a team or creative team or providing different support.
Yeah, for freelance, I'm normally contacted by an agency, and they can be a big agency or they can be a small agency. And they usually just need some support. They usually have a full-time, staff, and that staff is either stretched too thin or, there's always vacation issues with smaller agencies. And this last few years has been kind of up and down in terms of hirings and firings. So freelancers are usually brought in to sort of shore up and help support current workloads or things like new business pitches. When, new business pitches are a lot of like all hands on deck. Especially if you have a larger agency who might have a little bit more money to play with. So they're going to bring in maybe a few extra teams from outside their own company just because they can, and they want to make sure they have all creative angles covered and all the thinking covered that they can, and just do whatever they can to sort of win the pitch. And I usually work with a copywriter. Sometimes who's contacted me, the agency will have somebody in mind, but for the most part, it's hey, who do you like to work with? So that's another great thing about freelance is a lot of times I get to work with my buddies. So, and that makes the process a lot easier as well, because you can get to good places a little bit faster when you know somebody. There's not a lot of hand holding, or you're not really concerned about the other person's feelings because it's just work, it's just business. So you can, nope, don't like that next type of thing. So,
Nice. And I guess starting at a macro, what did you think overall of the Super Bowl, overall the ads? Obviously, you said the game was good, and it was definitely a good game. But.
God, the Super Bowl is such an interesting time of year for brands and advertising and marketing. The game was great. Congrats to Patrick Mahomes. Overall,
and it kept the it kept the attention of the viewer all the way to the end, right? Like, I would assume that there's like paying tiers, right? Where if you're in the first quarter, or even at the first commercial break, you would pay a different dollar amount than you would in the fourth quarter, depending on what happens. But I mean, you're literally glued, and it was crazy. I was thinking about it when I was driving home yesterday. You are literally glued to that TV for like 3 hours, or 4 hours, right? You're watching the whole thing. Commercials, game, halftime, beginning, ending, It's pretty remarkable for sure.
I'd say that any brands who paid for, the fourth quarter spots definitely got their money's worth, because they probably had more eyeballs on them than a lot of games in the past, But to going back to your first part of the question, there's definitely different pay tiers. The spot 1A, I'm really familiar with. Anheuser-Busch. This is the first year that they weren't the official sponsor, and that was a client of mine for about a dozen years. I had worked on Bud Light during the comedy years, and I'm super familiar with trying to get spots on Super Bowl for them, and they would always buy 1A, and that was the most expensive slot. And so as you go down the quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, it gets a little less expensive. Still pretty expensive, but
Right.
last night's game was a great opportunity for some of those brands who paid a little bit less, and you just never know how the game's going to go. It might be a blowout, and people start tuning out, at the end of the second, before halftime. And there's a lot of brands who spent a lot of money and probably didn't get a lot of eyeballs. But I think last night's game was, like you said, kept a lot of people glued to the TV and kept them sticking around for it. It was a good game.
Yeah, definitely. Just in do you think Budweiser didn't do this because they had such a big representation? Of course, I'm asking you to answer Budweiser, but because they had such a big representation for the World Cup this year? Would that have been too much, maybe?
I don't think Anheuser-Busch ever thinks they have enough representation. So, to be honest, and I say that with all love and respect, it was a great brand to work for. They are incredibly smart marketers. I don't know why they gave that up. Maybe it was just time for a change. They've changed a lot of their marketing and their strategy since I've left. I left right around the time that InBev bought the company, and there were a lot of marketing changes taking place, and I've seen those over the time that I've left. But I'm not 100% sure why they decided to give it up. But
that was a great move that they did, by the way, for the World Cup, where they did the Save a Pail or something like that, where they donated all the beer. Yeah, like whatever that campaign was. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I think they donated all the beer that was no longer going to be allowed to be sold in the stadium. Yeah, and that was really, really smart. That was just a way to endear yourself to not only people who got the beer, but just doing something like that. Oh, Budweiser's giving away a lot of beer. That's pretty nice. So that was a really smart move.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Definitely. So yesterday, going back on yesterday, what likes, dislikes, and I know off mic we were talking about how tough it is currently in the current, I guess, climate overall, right, in society, how difficult it is to market stuff. But what did you think? What do you rate it? Is that how you rate commercials? Do you rate them?
How do you just as a creative? I don't know.
Just in general, like, are they just?
It's hard. I mean, like you're saying, we're talking about this off mic, and it's a really hard time of year for a brand and for marketers and for agencies and for creatives. There's a lot of money being thrown around for these commercials, and the more money there is, the more fear there is, and marketers realize there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on their brand and what they're doing this one time. So they're praying it damn well works and works really well. They want people remembering their brand and their name. I think that's kind of the trick, and that's one thing that I try to sort of keep in mind is you kind of have to be honest with yourself. It's as I guess as a creative, it's not just what celebrity did I get and how funny was it, but did it resonate with the audience? Did people remember the brand? There's a lot of money spent on celebrities, musicians, and a lot of times people just remember that. Yeah. And that can be really dangerous for a brand to spend that kind of money, especially if maybe it's their first time doing something like this, and taking a big gamble. And, if they come to find out 24 hours later that nobody really remembers them as opposed to who they had in the spot, it's a problem. And I think there was a little bit of that. That happens every year. You don't remember exactly who it was. But I think there were definitely some high points and there were some low points from last night. And even the spots that maybe didn't resonate, at least with me, with all due respect to everybody who had anything in the game last night, I've been there. It is not easy. So, when people say, oh, I didn't like that or that didn't work or blah, 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 a lot of people don't understand what it takes to even get to that point. Like, to just have a brand that's willing to spend money and to trust you creatively to put something on the Super Bowl is a huge step. Like, it's huge. It's huge. For sure. So, when people, poo-poo a spot or whatnot, it ain't cool. But, as a creative, I always try to you remember your time doing it and trying to do really great work for the Super Bowl because it's a big time. And it's just, bottom line is it's not easy, and it's never been easy.
Yeah.
I'd say even more so nowadays. I think there's probably more, as they say, cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of money riding on this, and so there's a lot of fear and anxiety. So every little word in the script is scrutinized, and it can be a very anxiety-fueled couple of months until that thing.
I mean, I'm sweating just thinking about that pressure. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, we were with Anheuser-Busch. We would do quite a number of spots, more than would actually have aired on the game, but they would save a few of those that didn't air for the next quarter or spring, summertime.
Sure.
But we would overshoot, and you would get to. They would get to pick what they thought were the best spots through some easy testing, but that doesn't happen these days. I don't know any brand that goes off and shoots 5, 6, 7, 8 spots just to get 2 or 3 or even 1. We were very fortunate in the day.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it was easy to do those spots or to come up with them or do well on the ad meter, but it was a different time. Anheuser-Busch was a different brand at that time too. So, again, just because I say things maybe didn't resonate with me doesn't mean they didn't resonate with somebody else. And again, utmost props to everybody who had something on the game last night. It ain't easy, and job well done, no matter where you landed on the ad meter, which is a whole other.
Yeah, man, it's funny, and the reason I laugh so hard too is because you're always or sometimes when I'm at Super Bowl parties, people are like, oh, these commercials suck, blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but you don't know how difficult it was just to even get there, how much that cost.
Yeah,
and then you even mix that in with the game. People are like, oh, this person sucks. It's like, you imagine how fast those guys are running right now, how hard he just got hit.
Yeah, I can't drive as fast as some of those those running backs. It's you just never know. But as an audience member, I guess that's what we're prone to do. Either make me laugh or cry or be gone with you. Yeah,
the one that really impacted me, and I'm going to be hyper specific, was the Jesus ones. Mm-hmm. It was just the juxtaposition of, everything is so fast, right? The commercials are fast. There were some commercials that were long. The game is fast. Everything's fast, right? And then to throw up a black and white image that slowly moves over some music, it changed the whole tempo. And I was like, damn. And I even said it out loud. I was like, whoever hired Jesus, whoever Jesus hired, fucking doing a great job.
Yeah,
because there's only 2 spots, and I was in literally everybody's talking or whatever, a commotion. You just see, obviously we have a little big screen TV. It's like a piece of art that's just hanging there, right? And it just paused, slow, breaking it down. I was like, fuck, that's good.
It was really smart if you think about what the Super Bowl usually is. It's big, bombastic, colorful film, and they went black and white still images with some music.
Yes.
So that's, people are always looking for that secret sauce to doing a spot, and you either go big and funny and be the funniest, or you do something simple. If you look at last year's, QR code, just kind of slowly bouncing back and forth. That interrupted the whole game, and that's all it was for, I think, 15 seconds. Or the Reddit spot, I think that was 6 seconds. It just kind of was a blip on the screen. So I think that Jesus Gets Us was very smart in being able to grab attention for its messaging, because it basically just shifted what everybody else had been doing throughout the game.
Yeah, fantastic. Kudos for sure. That's wild. So I guess the Super Bowl is the main highlight of the year, right? And then is Cannes Lions, is that another kind of highlight? And I'll let you speak more to it. I don't even know what the hell I was doing there, but I was
Nobody ever does. By the time they leave, they had no idea what the hell they were doing there.
I was like, I don't even know what the hell just happened. A remarkable experience, man. I went before when I was 29 because the tickets were under 30, 30. There was discounted pricing, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta go, blah blah blah. It just said creativity festival, and I was thinking, oh my god, I'm a creative, I have to go. What does this mean? And I went and I had a great time, and I even got to go to the show because I met a design team earlier that day, and they actually won an award, and I don't remember who it was, but I went to the show, and we're sitting there, and I'm just taking it all in, and it was just like a magical sort of experience. But go ahead. So Cannes Creative in Nice, France, South France.
Well, the funny thing is, not funny, sad and terrible. I've never been.
Okay.
I've, at the risk of bragging, I have won
nice
several Lions, and that was great, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
But times and money being what they were for the agency at the time, we it's funny because we won back-to-back Grand Prix for radio.
Very cool.
Those years, and yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to go. But the stories are all true. I've heard them firsthand. It's a great it's a great recognition. Cannes is sort of the pinnacle for advertising creatives and for brands to be recognized and acknowledged for the work they did. The categories keep growing every year. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, I saw that people were giving a lot of flack about that. It's growing so much. It's like, where does it water down the other wins, or?
I don't know if it waters. That's a great question. I don't know if it waters down. I just don't know where you stop. I mean, yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's just it's turned a 3-day festival into an 8-day festival, which that's cool too. I mean, I guess I don't know if your work's really good. They've got some of the best judges in the industry globally looking at this work, and I think the people who win it really deserve it. I'll say something that's probably not going to be terribly popular, but I'd say that advertising probably has a few too many award shows, and I think that's kind of what waters it down. Between local shows in your city and then the international shows, and the winners tend to, for the most part, follow from show to show. So that's to me what kind of waters it down. It's like, okay, I know that was great work. Well, it's going to win the next show too, and the next show after that. I think there's at least a half a dozen international shows at least for this industry. So I don't think it necessarily needs that many, but again, kudos to all those who win, because I do believe it's well deserved. I just don't know if we need as many as we have. But yeah, Cannes is the pinnacle of it all. Yeah, and there's the Pinnacle Awards too.
Yeah. And so what do you think was like the biggest hurdle from yesterday? No pun intended. Like, do you think it was? I guess, like you said, everything's just loud and kind of in your face right now, and there's just so much of an oversaturation of content that's out there, right? And people want to be. I mean, I guess let me back up. How has COVID changed the advertising industry, in your opinion? Like before, was it operating a certain way, and then the train kind of changed?
Yeah, I mean, in my role in advertising, it's a very collaborative one. Mm-hmm. So I usually work with a copywriter, and our group creative director or executive creative directors usually right down the hall. Our account person and our strategy person are usually right down the hall. And you get to sort of talk when you need to talk about problems with the work, the brief, the client, whatever. I would say that it's a little more difficult to do that these days. I think there are some good things. I think people feel a little more freedom. Working from home, you don't lose, for some people, an hour or two just in a commute. Mm-hmm. There's the stress of that. For me, I haven't been in an office in almost, it's 3 years this March. I once the world sort of collapsed, and it's been that long since I've been in an office, and nothing's really changed, I'd say, in a really detrimental way. I kind of miss sitting in a room with my writing partner. Now it's, over Zoom, or you work for a day or two on your own and you come together and you sort of do that. Like I said, it's a very collaborative part of the business, and I do miss that. I guess I don't miss the rush hour and things like that.
Are your peers returning to the office?
There are some. My wife was out of the office for quite a while, and they just instituted 2 days a week that they're required to go in. So she's going in Tuesdays and Thursdays. So they're definitely doing that. But I think that, companies can't ignore the fact that working from home works.
Yeah.
But there are definitely moments in time, and I think that's why some companies are instituting the 1 or 2 or 3 days working from the office. There are times where you just need to be together to get things done. That's just, I think, part of our industry. Things can work better when you're all together. Things get done a little bit quicker, and there are times where you don't need to have that happen, but there are times when you do. You've got new business pitches. I think I've been on several since COVID, and they've all been over Zoom, and I really don't like that.
No.
I don't like new business pitches over Zoom. I think you lose so much energy and so much. A lot of what we do in selling an idea is showmanship. And it's not to say any of us are walking in top hats and fireworks, but you get a chance to, look somebody in the eye and tell them why this is a great idea. And, technology, for as great as it is, it can fuck up a lot too. And the last thing you want during a new business pitch on a Zoom call is for your screen to go down or something to glitch or your server stops or whatever it is. So in those moments, if the screen goes down in a live presentation with the client in the room, you can pick that up immediately. You don't have to lose a step. You can take it to another place. You can talk about, you can continue to talk about the idea and hold their attention. I think technology sometimes can screw that up. So overall, COVID, crazy. But as far as our industry goes,
Wild.
I think, it's. And I'm not saying that I don't think COVID is going to come back and do the damage it does, but I don't think we're even over what this has to show us how to do business and ways to improve or to readjust what we're doing.
Yeah.
I hope the worst part of COVID is over, but I think it's still showing us ways to improve how we do business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I guess, can you mention a little bit more about pitching? Obviously you've been on a lot of pitches. Have you recorded pitches, or how have your pitches evolved? I guess for us, pitching is something that's obviously Zoom pitches are horrible. But I'm a big fan of recording and playing back and kind of watching yourself and because not a lot of people have the opportunity to pitch, right? At least for our industry, it's always the more of the project managers or the people who are going to be working on the project, obviously. But it's just a cycle, right? You keep doing it. You're part of the pitch team or whatever. But in order to bring new people in, how do you train that, and how do you allow some of the youngers to have that experience, right? And I think a lot of the pitch practice is important. I know in our industry, at least when I was in the office or working at a larger firm, pitches were always a scramble, right? And I'm assuming it's the same thing. Okay, great. So, day before, you're getting the pitch
hours
before, and you're like, okay, well, you talk about this, and who's ever running the pitch, and even down to passing the slide, right, or changing the slide at the right time. All of that is so important in a pitch that I feel as though people don't really take the time to understand or to articulate when they want something to happen, because it is theatrical, right, and it is a showmanship kind of portion to it. But I guess how did you evolve your pitch presentation style?
I'm not sure I have a pitch presentation style other than to try to engage the room as much as possible
Yeah.
in terms of how you're presenting the work. I think it's funny. I think pitches are kind of an agency's own little mini Superbowl in a way. You've spent a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of money on a pitch, and if you're lucky, you get an hour with a client these days. And
That's a long time.
yeah,
A long time.
if you're lucky, you get that. Yeah. Especially if they've got a lot of, agencies to see that day or,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
that week. They're flying in and out.
And then,
but
sorry, not to cut you off. Do you want to go pitch first, pitch last, pitch in the middle? Like people always have their different, cadence as far as the way they want to be in the order.
that's a good question. I don't know if it's ever really. I don't know if you'll ever find out that it made a difference or not.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion. I know what you say is true. It's some people want to be the first agency to pitch to the clients. Some people want to be the last because they're the last ones, and that's who the brand will probably remember more. But I'm not sure. Hopefully the work really speaks for itself.
Love
but
it. Yeah, for sure.
it's you have that moment in time to, like a Super Bowl spot, wow your audience. It's hard to do. I think you just have to believe in the work. Truly believe in the work. You have to know the work inside and out, so that way you're not working off script. It feels just as natural as you and I sitting here talking about it. And I think you have to do work that they haven't seen before, which is always obviously in a pitch tough to know. But I think as the agency, you have to, again, go back to work you believe in. It has to be the kind of work you want to do, because if they buy your work, you're going to have to do it. So you damn well better really like what you did. So, although, sometimes that it happens too, where, the brand loves the work you pitched, but you'll do different work down the line eventually that will run. But pitches need to be simple, dynamic, and you want the client walking out of the room with their jaws on the floor. And that can be hard, but everybody has a role, like you're saying. It needs to be practiced. People need to know their shit.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what makes a really smooth presentation. There are good presenters and there are not good presenters, and even the bad presenters need to feel important and can practice and do better. And just get into that swing of the pitch.
Yeah. And I know a lot of clients are always, at least for our line of work, they're like, no, we want to meet the people who are actually going to work on the project, right? Like, of course, we don't want to see the salesperson, whatever. Like, they could, pitch anything. But if you are the one actually working on it and interacting with the client day to day, that's who they want to hear from, right? So it's definitely, but it needs to be practice. Even down to oh my God, man, I'm just thinking about pitching, and even down to the technology. Yeah, exactly. Because there's so much that rides in it. And these companies, like, depending on what the fees are, and even if you're not, right, just getting one on the board is always a good thing, especially for morale for the team. And if you lose 10 pitches, you're like, fuck, like, do I really want to go on this 11th pitch? Like, and then there's a whole nother way, like, obviously if you're losing 10, like, you should probably rethink about how you are pitching at that point, right? But even down to the technology, I mean, you think about like old school where you're doing the foam core boards and you're printing out the artwork, like, there's something to be said about that, right? And I know for us, everything's going more towards this digital visualization where it's hyper photorealistic renderings, where it's like, okay, why not take it back to like the sketches, right? And allow the client to envision sort of things, right? You don't know what that material is. You don't know what this is. But I guess, do you like obviously we were talking about Zoom, so everything's digital, right? But I guess how would you set that up now differently?
Well, let me open this
Yeah, well,
Coca-Cola.
Let me take this crack this beverage. Oh, which, by the way, let me give a big shout out to Cory and Level Reps. I know, I'm sorry, we're kind of far into this podcast, but shout out to Cory and Level Reps for hosting us in the Turf Showroom. Stay tuned after the podcast to talk a little bit more about where we're at and the products you see and seen. But yeah, this is a beautiful showroom. Very interesting, very dynamic, local company. So yeah, just want to give them a shout out. So thank you.
I'm going to give them a shout out too, because this is a beautiful showroom. Turf here in the Merchandise Mart. I mean, if for anybody who doesn't know the Merchandise Mart, there are showrooms on the first floor and all throughout the building, and they're all beautiful. And it's tough competition. This is a beautiful studio.
I want to say they won last year, or the year before, for Neocon best design showroom. So, yeah, it is beautiful. You have been in the Mart though. What do you did you do business in the Mart or?
Well, I've been in Chicago. Like I said, my father and uncle had an agency not too far from here for 30 years. So as a kid growing up, on my days off school, I'd get to ride the train down with Dad, and he had a building at 333. What was it? Sorry. I think it was 333 North Michigan was the first office, and the second one was on Dearborn, right across from the Leo Burnett building. So I grew up coming down here, and as I got older, I'd be allowed to walk further and further away from the from his office. And so, yeah, I spent time wandering these halls, and had a few clients in here as well, and had a few lunches in here. And there's some beautiful showrooms in here just to look at design and tactiles and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
definitely.
I think you
I was
asked
talking
me
about the
pitches.
pitching.
Yeah.
And we don't have to stay too much on it, but it's
great,
very important, right? Regardless of what industry you're in, like pitching yourself, like if you're looking for a job, and I mean, pitching is an important aspect of work for sure. Yeah,
it's the way pitching is done. Again, you almost kind of have to put the last 2 years aside because it's just not fair. And I kind of hope that that's one aspect of the out of office routine that COVID brought to us that goes away. Pitching in person, I think, is the only way to pitch. It's hard, but I think it's totally worth it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think there is something, we've gone a little too far in pitching work that looks like it could run on air the next day.
Yeah, right.
Because that's not going to happen. It's just a lot of things are going to change. The concept is what you're pitching to the client. The idea of how to speak to the audience is what you want them to buy off on. I think brands are, I don't want to say inflexible, but when you reach a point where the work is so finished, it leaves nothing to evolve, to grow.
Yeah.
And I think pitches are done these days even faster than they seemed like they were a few years ago. So
I feel like that makes the quality go down, no? If you're doing it that, I mean, we're all pressured by fees, right? Fees are a huge thing, and the time reflects the fee, and you're just under the gun to flip something out, but it doesn't mean that it's the fullest, like, I was hesitant to tell a client, and I actually didn't tell them, but like, if we could have spent a little more time on this, maybe it could have been a little bit better, But I was confident in what we presented, and it was great. And obviously we have a working history with the client, so they were okay with it. But it was on the tip of my tongue to say, hey, listen, like if we had a little bit more time, we could have done something a little bit more better. So, but
no, I 100% agree. I think there's pitching the idea to the client, again, of how you're going to eventually talk to your audience. And then there's the execution of that. And I think I would much rather pitch an idea that a client can look at and go, oh, yeah, I get that. I understand how this could grow, evolve. I could see many different variations of this idea coming to life, as opposed to having the pressure of not only coming up with that idea that has that ability to do all those things, but then do all those things. You just don't have the time. You don't have the money. You just don't. And it's really hard because I think, again, we've gotten, and as have brands, have gotten accustomed to seeing things in damn near finished form.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. I think I would rather again, I'd rather pitch a great idea that I knew in my heart could take on many, many facets of that idea, and spend my team's time and money and efforts doing ideas like that, as opposed to then, you only get 3 or 4 days. Again, pitches happen so quick. Maybe you only get 3 or 4 days to ideate, and then there's the pressure of 2, 3, 4 days to execute against that. And there's more mediums than ever before. It's not just TV and print anymore. It's it's your TikTok, it's your Instagram, it's TV, it's radio, it's print, it's all your digital, it's your banners, it's all those things. So to try to have an execution for all of those is crazy, and it's hard, and it takes a lot of time. That's usually why most pitches last up until the wee hours of the morning, until the pitch happens. You're just trying to get all those things done. Mm-hmm. So it's tough.
It is tough for sure. And I feel as though that's where brands start, or not brands, just agencies or companies start cannibalizing the youth, right? Because they have the eagerness in their eyes still, and you are just you got the back on there? Yeah, good. Back is away. Perfect.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm new to this.
Oh my God, we
technology.
recorded this whole time with the back towards the front.
I don't think so.
Okay. But cannibalizing the youth, I think that's something where brands go towards. But so I guess outlook, what are we thinking for 2023? Obviously, it's the beginning of the year, but are there a lot of trends coming on, or what do you think is going to happen? Because you're right. There's so much. People are glued to YouTube, right? People are glued to this. So it's changed the way the consumer consumes their media, right? Especially the TikTok and all this jazz. So I would think the world of advertising is almost flipped upside down. Like, which way to go, and how do I stay true or genuine as a brand when I reach this channel, and et cetera?
I'm not great with what a trend will be, but I think you just hit the nail on the head. Is no matter where you are as a creative, my job is to make sure that no matter where the brand wants to be, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or TV, that brand voice is the same across the board. So when people walk away from their interaction with the brand, no matter where it may be, they feel the same way each time. Yeah. As far as trends go, I don't know. I look at a few design and art direction trends and, typography and things like that. But, technology is changing constantly at the so fast all the time. I will be curious to see if the government pulls off this TikTok ban, which I think will never happen. It might happen with government officials not being able to use TikTok, but it was just I can't think of any other time where the government was trying to
regulate something like
a social media platform.
I think it was like on their work phone or something. They can't download TikTok or something crazy like that. Yeah, that's.
If they have security issues, I get it. I don't. No one's watching me anyway. But
this past weekend, my family was like, "Oh, well, are you gonna?" We had a birthday party on Saturday, and they're like, "Oh, are you gonna log into their Wi-Fi?" I wouldn't log into their Wi-Fi. They're gonna steal your information. I'm like, "Who the fuck's gonna steal my information?"
Who am I?
Who do I want?
You want my debt? Okay,
yeah, exactly. Too funny. Well, yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on and talking to us for sure, and give us some little insight as far as the advertising world and kind of what happens. It's definitely interesting to see. We're definitely, I think a lot of the things we've been seeing is, a lot of organic placement within the television realm, and that's getting more popular, obviously, with things like The Glass Onion from Netflix, right? And just having these big blockbuster movies that are having these organic placements that really are pretty timeless. And I don't know, I'm always curious, like, how do those conversations go, right? Like, does the brand talking to the movie producer? Is the movie producer talking to like an agency? Like, how do those opportunities even like come about? Because I feel as though like those are such high level conversations. Like, you would have to know that movie's being produced in order to do that, right?
Yeah, those are not something I'm terribly familiar with, but it usually, the brand marketers on the brand side, the chief marketing officers of a brand, they usually are aware of these things, especially the bigger brands who have maybe a little bit more money or a little bit more staff, or they have the ability to keep their eyes open for opportunities like that.
Yeah.
Anheuser-Busch was, again, the client of mine for quite a while, and they always came to us and said, hey, we have this opportunity to be, in a movie. They did a promotion with Will Ferrell basketball movie decades ago.
Classic.
I can't remember what it was called, but they wanted us to do some promotional spots for that. It's interesting. I actually, it sort of makes me think back to the black and white TV days when the talk show hosts would promote, the latest dishwashing soap or cigarettes right there on the show. And I think for whatever reason that did very well for brands. If it's coming from somebody that people trust, it just has a little extra something behind it. Conan O'Brien does that on his podcast. He reads the promotions for the brands who are on there, and I think it's much more palatable when it comes from somebody within, like you were saying, the organic nature of it. It sort of takes place seamlessly in that environment. Like he's just one example, but movie placements have been around for a while.
Yeah.
I think they're hard to do. They can be a bit
forced, if you will.
blunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how they come about, I think they kind of come about in a myriad of ways. And again, my experience is, the brand usually approached us. The client would usually approach us. But, there are times if you have the time and you have a creative team they have an assignment and they're like, oh, well, what if we did this thing? Like, what if we tried to get, a slot on a Netflix show, or we tried to get Jimmy Kimmel to talk about it in some way? That's happening more and more these days, and more in interesting ways as well. So I think it's coming about. Hopefully it's coming about from all sides. I think the tricky thing is the financial aspect of it, being able to pay for that execution, be able to afford the Kimmel to do it or whomever, as well as does it feel right for the brand? I more than had my fair share of brands, clients saying, hey, we want to be over here on this thing. And you're like, well, I don't think that's really why. Why do you want to? What's the point of you being, on Jimmy Fallon's show or Seth Meyers or wherever you want to be, or somebody's podcast that just doesn't. If you want to attach yourself to that, or their audience, you have to really think: is that the audience that wants to be approached by me or a part of me? So, a lot of brands sometimes can make that mistake of being places they don't belong. But there are also brands who are just great at it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, where can people follow you? Where can people reach out to you?
Please don't.
First, please don't. Busy man.
If you want to see any of my work, you can go to thechrisroeshow.com. Same moniker on Instagram. I think it's Chris Roe on Twitter.
What's your preferred platform? What do you like? I mean, you may not like any of them.
That's a great question. I don't know. I kind of surf them all, and I don't. And by surf, I mean I just I skim through them. I wouldn't say that I have a heavy presence on any of them. This TikTok having come on to the scene like a hurricane has been really fun to watch. And
I don't have a TikTok account.
I
need to. A lot of people will just watch things that are happening on TikTok, and I'm like, oh, maybe I need to check it out.
These platforms, what I found so interesting about them is that it's just amazing the shit you can learn in your own profession and your own industry. And then, yes, there's the funny people who fall off their bikes into a pond or something. But like, I think can be really great about the platforms, because God knows social can be very damaging to people, to their psyche and things like that. I think on the upside, there's a great deal of learning to be done out there. And I think also inspiration that people post, whether it's, the story of an adopted dog that, was almost killed and found in, its forever home. That's great. Or just, as an amateur home chef, like all the stuff that I can find on a daily basis that inspires me and gets me wanting to do more. Or as a professional in advertising, as an art director, things that I can find there to inspire me or to help me be better at what I do. So, yeah, a lot of platforms out there. I don't know if I have a favorite one.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Definitely cheers to the inspiration that you just mentioned as well. And we'll have you back on for sure.
Giddy up. Thanks.
So thank you, everybody, for checking out the podcast with Chris Roe, here to tell us a little bit more about the products you're seeing and seeing in the showroom we're in. I'll let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Cory Johnson. I'm one of the co-founders at Level Reps. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Level Reps, you guys have been around for a while.
Yeah, started actually 12 years ago last week. We're pretty excited about it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, and we really started with the idea that a couple of industry vets who had been around for a little while just saw an opportunity to treat people better. That was really the genesis of this, was just we saw a bunch of experiences that we didn't love. Yeah. And we thought we could treat our customers better, create a better customer experience, but also create a culture where we could treat our employees a lot better and recruit people who we were excited about and keep them here for a long time. And then ultimately, treat our community better too. We're passionate about the opportunity to make an impact here, and we try to get behind that in a pretty serious way. So yeah, we're an independent rep agency, so we are sales and marketing for a really diverse group of manufacturers inside of the contract interior space, and they contract us to try to help them obviously find business, but also push their businesses forward.
Yeah. I mean, you guys rep some great brands, and local brand here.
Yeah, so we're sitting in the Turf Showroom, which is one of our newer partnerships, and we're super pumped about these guys. They are, they've been around since 2016, but based here in Chicago in the northwest suburbs.
Nice.
And what they do is they just design with sound in mind. So they give architects and designers some incredible tools to create, different designs that impact the way that the space looks, but also the way it sounds. And it's all using this relatively new material, is PET material, but what makes them unique is just their design capability, their passion for innovation. Their solutions are, in my opinion, they're basic. Their standard solutions are incredible, but then their ability to work with an architect or designer to create something totally unique and totally custom is second to none. So they do some really great work.
Cool. Yeah. Do they still have the firehouse design? Headquarters?
They do.
Yeah,
they do. So their factory is out in Gilbert, so northwest suburbs, but they've got a great design center over in Logan Square, which is a great neighborhood in Chicago, and then obviously this space, which showcases a variety of their solutions. So like this product, for example, is a product called Contour, which is a great example of the type of work they do. It gives an architect the ability to really sculpt the ceiling that fits best within the space and work. It's super flexible, works around, whatever architectural elements you need to work around, but gives you sort of just free will to be able to create something that just works for your customer and for the space that you're dealing with.
Nice.
The product over here in the pink, this is a product called Swells, which is similar in design, but just a totally different take on how you just create something totally unique for a space, but also make that space just sound so much better and work for your customers. So they're pretty unique in their approach to how they make it work.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, this is the best acoustically sound room we've ever recorded in. So I love it.
To come back.
Yeah, right. And where can people follow you and check you guys out?
So you can find us at levelreps.com, or you can follow Turf at turf.design and check out some of their products. They're always showcasing brand new stuff, and I'm sure they'd love to have you follow them.
Cool. Well, thanks again for hosting us, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Right.
Your safety is important. If you observe unattended packages, vandalism, or suspicious activity, inform CTA personnel immediately. Doors closing.